It is I, back once again with more things that no one asked for. So, my first Unpopular Opinions video did pretty well, and by pretty well, I mean 69 views in 2 days because my YouTube channel is still tiny. Please help me get more subbies, I work so hard. And since I happen to have a whole list of these babies, I figured I'd do one more, because why not? One's gonna be a little different from the last video as far as content goes. In the last video, I'm for the most part focused on anime and musical theater, whereas in this one, we might talk about music, we might talk about television, we might talk about books, we'll see. So I'm gonna cut right to the chase with a very controversial television opinion about one of my favorite shows, and that is that Skylar White from Breaking Bad is a freaking fantastic character. And not even in the sense that, oh, Anna Gunn did such a good job making her hateable, because I don't think we're supposed to hate Skylar at all. I find that a lot of people's reasons for hating Skylar tend to be very contradictory. In the first couple of seasons, people called Skylar a nagging harpy for doing whatever any normal, sane wife would do and being skeptical about her husband's whereabouts and eventually repulsed when she finds out what he's doing. Then once Skylar decides she has no choice but to reluctantly aid and abet Walt in his crimes in order to protect her family, people call her a hypocrite. You just can't win with her. Personally, I don't think Skylar is a hypocrite as much as she is conflicted, which is a very rare thing that female characters are allowed to be in terms of morals. Skylar hates Heisenberg, but she still loves Walter White and is hopeful that that side of him will ultimately win over, which is why she doesn't turn him in. She in no way tries to absolve herself of moral guilt for aiding Walt. Skylar knows that what she's doing is wrong. She's under no delusions about that, but she has fully weighed all of her options and has simply come to the conclusion that as much as she hates herself for doing this, it's the only way to keep her family from being destroyed. I think that many of the people who hate on Skylar because they find her so annoying and bitchy would probably have done the same thing in her situation. Skylar also doesn't get nearly enough respect for how smart she is. She has an amazing head for details and numbers, and she's also great at manipulating people in order to get them to give her what she needs. Ultimately, Skylar was just trying to do what Walt told himself he was trying to do the whole time, which was protect her family. She's a really fascinating character and a genuine anti-heroine, which is something we don't see very often. I also actually like Marie. I mean, she was definitely an attention seeker and struggled a lot with her kleptomania, but she proved over and over again how much she genuinely cares about her family, and she's also pretty funny. Plus, I just find Betsy Brandt really charming for some reason. Overall, I greatly appreciate Vince Gilligan and the other writers of Breaking Bad for making the female characters just as complex and nuanced as the male ones, who often don't receive nearly as much criticism for their sometimes much larger moral failings. And now for another shipping hot take. Stop shipping Alina and the Darkling, please, I'm begging you. You know he's toxic, you just don't want to admit it because Ben Barnes is just that sexy. This one should be obvious, like, I thought we were better than that, people. I get it, it's tempting because Jesse and Ben's chemistry probably was one of the best parts of Shadow and Bone. But on what planet does anyone in their right mind think shipping a guy with a girl who he literally tells to submit to him is a good idea? I mean, here I was honestly thinking that the awesomeness of this scene would have solved the problem.
You may have needed me, but I never needed you.
But alas, apparently we're no better than the anime community when it comes to giving total douchebags pretty privilege. To be fair, I have just started reading the books, like as in halfway through with the first one, so it may be a little different, but considering that Leigh Bardugo literally based the Darkling off of her abusive ex, I don't think so. In conclusion, Greaserverse fans, don't ship Darklina, ship Kanej. Kanej is good. I don't know if the next one is as much an unpopular opinion as it is something that I feel needs to get talked about, and that is that The Nevers is worth your time! I was a little skeptical about watching this show because of all the stuff that went down with Joss Whedon, but my parents convinced me to give it a try after watching the opening scene, and I don't regret it one bit. Some of the critics have trashed it, and I don't know if it's doing super well in the ratings, so I don't know if we're gonna get another season, but it's definitely not perfect, but it has everything that makes a good show for me. The plot and world building is actually a lot more inventive than I expected it to be at the start, and it pulls off that nowadays rare feat of discussing dark themes while still maintaining a sense of fun. It's got emotion, it's got humor, it's got gorgeous, and from what I hear, surprisingly historically accurate costumes. And in spite of us now knowing him to be a pretty scummy person, Joss Whedon has unfortunately maintained his aptitude for creating characters that you will fall head over heels in love with. Core group of characters is so likable and diverse, and all of the actors are phenomenal. Laura Donnelly as Amalia True is a gem, and Penance Adair is literally one of the most lovable, amazing, pure, just overall spectacular characters I have seen recently in television. Please protect her. Like I said, it's not perfect. Some of the political stuff is a little heavy-handed, and there were one too many weird sex scenes for my liking. All the good stuff definitely makes that stuff worth it if you're looking for an emotionally and visually rich sci-fi show or period drama. And if you're like me and you didn't want to watch the show at the start because you didn't want to support Joss Whedon, well, he's announced his departure from the show, so as far as I'm concerned, you're golden. I had to take a shower, so I look like this now. Now, my next unpopular opinion is one that has been contested for a long time, and that is that my favorite TV show of all time, Lost, my beloved, had a great series finale. I know a lot of people were like, oh, they left so many questions unanswered. It made no sense. They were dead the whole time. First of all, no, they were not dead the whole time. If I hear one more person say that, I will hit them with my shoe. Second of all, a lot of the questions people wanted to get answered were answered in the epilogue New Man in Charge. I think the only major thing I really didn't understand by the end was what the heck was up with Walt, but I mean, small potatoes. I have always been a lot less of a plot person and a lot more of a character person, and in that regard, the Lost finale absolutely delivered where it mattered. And I thought the finale perfectly captured the two things that, in my opinion, Lost was always about, which are redemption and relationships. So many great moments, from Jack's final fight with the Man in Black, to Sawyer and Juliet's reunion, to the perfect way they ended Ben's character arc. Thematically and emotionally, to me, I think it was the most satisfying finale the series possibly could have had. Another thing I liked that a lot of people didn't was season 6 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I'm not really gonna get into the more controversial things about this season, seeing red. The whole thing is a painfully believable exploration of depression, and since Buffy is pretty much a metaphor for growing up, it also profoundly illustrates the disillusionment many young adults face after leaving college. It contains some of the series' best episodes, like Once More with Feeling and Tabula Rasa, and Sarah Michelle Gellar is just at her best throughout the entire thing. And after all that grief and trauma and pain, then there's probably one of my favorite season finales in the series, with Grave and Buffy finally realizing that she wants to live and show her sister the beauty of the world, and it's just a gorgeous scene. I think this season probably would have been received a lot better now that it's more normalized for TV shows to take tonal risks. An unpopular opinion I have about television as a whole is that I really don't like the new trend where every single show is going with really short seasons. I can understand why it's become so prominent. After all, you want your show to be no filler, all killer, right? It's gotten to the point where hardly any show streaming on like Netflix or Hulu ever has like more than 10 episodes. And usually it's a lot less than that. Like, it's gotten totally normal for shows to like just do 6 or less episodes per season. And I don't like this, and I'm gonna tell you why. Now, theater is what I hope to go into for a career, but my favorite storytelling medium is television, and that is because it allows better than any other medium for long-term character development. Back when it was normal for shows to have 20 episodes per season, the plot may have been less tight, but you got so much more time with the cast. And I get that a lot of shows don't use this extra time well, but okay, here's the thing. When a show has When a show that's like serialized has only 6 episodes per season, that basically means that it has to be all plot all the time. Now, for some people, this is probably a good thing, but for me, I think that getting to see the characters in positions where they're just doing normal things and being themselves is so important to getting us invested in a story. Because if you don't know and love these characters and their personalities, then why are you going to care that this super dense plot is happening to them? I think it's great to have an episode every once in a while that moves the characters rather than the plot, such as Breaking Bad's Fly. Other shows that do this really well are Lost, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Assassination Classroom. Personally, I think the optimum length for a TV show season is somewhere between the old network length and the currently popular streaming length, somewhere around 10 to 15 episodes like Doctor Who or the last season of Person of Interest. Now to a little music stuff. I love the Beatles, but the White Album could have been a lot better. It's sort of odd that I think this, because I'm pretty sure this album has more of my favorite Beatles songs than any of their other albums, and I own it on vinyl. Half of it is awesome classics like Back in the USSR, I Will, Revolution, and my favorite Beatles song of all time, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And the other half of it is things that I'm pretty sure literally no one asked for. Hey, Bungalow Bill, what did you kill? Bungalow Bill. I realized that at the time, a double album was pretty revolutionary. But I don't think it really needed to be a double album. I think this album would have been a lot better if they just kept the best songs and made it a single album and cut all the filler. Take, for instance, another iconic double album, The Wall by Pink Floyd, which I also have on vinyl. Not a single song on this album is wasted. They all either service the story/themes that the band is trying to convey, or just plain sound awesome. The White Album sounds more like they just took every single thing that every single member wrote and just kind of slapped it on there. And they were like, okay, we'll throw it in, even if it sucks. The time of this album's production was also one of the band's most tense periods. They were starting to grow apart a bit, and while this led to them finding their own awesome new sounds, it also led to them clashing with each other, which you can really hear in how kind of disjointed this album sounds. Overall, I think Abbey Road was the album the White Album wanted to be. It shows off the members' individual personalities while still having a cohesive sound and not just slapping songs together randomly. To be fair, it's been a hot minute since I've done any research on the Beatles, so I could be totally wrong about the way this album was produced, so feel free to correct me in the comments section. This isn't really an unpopular opinion amongst people who have my taste in music, but I feel like it's probably an unpopular opinion among people in general. Here's why mumble rap is the worst thing to happen to the music industry. I've never listened to a ton of rap in my lifetime, as a lot of times the sound just didn't really appeal to me, and especially when I was younger, I didn't really enjoy songs that had gratuitous language or violent imagery. I do know that there are plenty of rappers out there who have great lyrics, which is awesome, but
you gotta learn the lyrics like this, which is what most rappers nowadays do. No one's gonna be able to understand the words, no matter how awesome they are.
And if you can't understand the lyrics, then what the heck is the point? This is why, even though I am by no means a rap aficionado, I have a lot of respect for Eminem's music. Say what you will about the guy, but by modern standards, he has excellent diction, and he delivers his lyrics like he actually gives a crap about what he's saying. I think a lot of grunge artists are probably guilty of this problem too. This is probably just the classically trained musician in me talking, and I'm not saying that every song has to sound like it's from an opera or something. I'm not saying all of your words have to be perfectly enunciated, but seriously, guys, the better your diction is, the more your audience will care about what you're saying. Consonants are weapons, and diction is conviction. Similarly, I really don't like the direction a lot of, modern TV show music scoring is going in. I get that music in, scores and stuff is supposed to underscore a scene and not necessarily, draw attention to itself. That doesn't mean your scores can't have a melody in them. Or if they do have a melody, it has to be drowned out by whooshing noises. Seriously, so many shows nowadays, especially on streaming services, the musical score is just droning on a single note, and I'm like, it's not atmospheric anymore. It's basic and lazy. I really miss the days when shows like Lost put special effort into giving each character a beautifully orchestrated theme that fit them perfectly. Off the top of my head, the only 2010 forward shows I can think of that had really memorable musical scores were Stranger Things, The Queen's Gambit, and Dark. It kills me, absolutely kills me, that after the absolute genius Murray Gold left Doctor Who, now their freaking musical score just sounds like every other dumb show, and it's just droning everywhere. If you know of any fresh new shows that have really exciting, memorable musical scores, please recommend them to me in the comments. When I say this, I'm not counting anime and cartoons because they've been getting more interesting than live action shows for a while now. My final unpopular opinion, and this might be my most controversial one, is Gone with the Wind is a good book. It is not without its flaws. The characterizations of the slave characters are admittedly lacking in nuance, and though they're not quite as bad as those in other books of the time, they may perhaps have contributed to some stereotypes we've had about people of color over the last century. I do not, however, believe the book romanticizes slavery. There were plenty of slave-owning families in the South who did not behave abusively towards their slaves, though this did not make slavery any less repulsive. If you are a black person and you do not like Gone with the Wind because of the way it portrays people of your race, that is 100% okay. However, to take Gone with the Wind off bookshelves and movie channels simply because some aspects of it haven't aged well would be to reduce it to nothing more than its flaws, which I don't believe we should do with any work of art. There's still so much we can gain from Gone with the Wind while still learning from its mistakes. Thematically, the book especially does such an excellent job portraying the sacrifices that women have always had to make in order to fit into polite society. Scarlett O'Hara is the original and quintessential anti-heroine. Margaret Mitchell's writing manages to make her both loathsome and incredibly admirable at the same time, and her relationship with Rhett Butler, while not the healthiest one, is incredibly interesting. And it's such a well-executed tragedy, because Scarlett doesn't realize she's had the things she really wants all along until it's much too late and she's already lost them. Overall, in spite of its flaws, it's a fascinating, emotionally rich story about the turmoil of the post-war South and a stubborn young woman who refused to bow to its social norms. I recommend you check it out while still keeping in mind that some things about it were very much of its time and some still hold up today. And that is all for now for my Unpopular Opinions two-parter, and I have to go to bed now.